Hey, this is Lisa here with your love note for January 17th, 2021. Welcome to my backyard. This is right behind the house that I'm living in right now. And honestly, I've never explored back here, mainly because rattlesnakes. But it's cold now and they should not be here. I don't see any, but it's kind of beautiful and kind of fascinating. And one of the things I learned while I was out here is that the rocks are in these interesting round formations that are cleared in the middle. And I'm seeing that some of the trees are twisted in such a way that I've only seen in Sedona. So I'm wondering if I'm not sitting on a little vortex right back here, or a couple of them actually. So anyway, that's kind of fascinating. But today the guides came in and wanted to talk about the issue of spirit-splaining. And I'm going to try my damnedest to have this conversation without spirit-splaining to you. So I'm going to invite you, call me out on my shit if it appears that I am participating in the spirit-splaining, talking down to violating the sovereign nature of anyone else's soul, or pursuing my way is the only way kind of approach, because that really is the heart of spirit-splaining and why it's not so helpful. So the guides came in today and basically were sharing that for many of us, we started our spiritual pursuit because the idea of there is one way and only one way to think about the spiritual journey just doesn't fit. Like that box was too suffocating and too stifling for what our spirit felt to be known as true. But in the process, there are a lot of folks within the spiritual community, who have also adopted that same tactic. That, well, they've learned so much and they've grown so much, but they've also are coming at teaching it from a place of my way is the only way and you must do it this way, or like your head's going to explode, or you'll be trapped in, karmic cycles forever, or whatever. Some of us get a little frustrated by that. Now, there are some people who actually, the very nature of who they are, they work better with a very clear set of instructions. They want an instruction manual for spiritual development. They want clear rules to follow. And that is totally cool. If that's what works best for their soul and their way of kind of better understanding what's going on out here, perfect. There are others of us who want to take those instruction manuals and blow them the fuck up because they feel claustrophobic and constricting, and that's not the path of our soul. Either way is totally fine. It's a matter, because we are sovereign souls, because we do have spiritual sovereignty, we get to pick and pursue the way that works for us. We might go down some paths that we realize, oh, hey, this isn't really my path, and let me try this over here. We might feel really comfortable inside, a specific container to explore our spiritual experience within this specific container. That's fine too. I think the opportunity is to not get frustrated. Well, first of all, to not feel like we have to preach to others that our way is the only way. And secondly, to not get so frustrated when others do preach at us that way that we turn our back on the whole thing. So Spirit came in and said, yes, you humans are each sovereign beings with your own unique and sovereign journey. Some of you do pledge allegiances before your birth or even during incarnation that can impact and influence your level of freedom and liberation. Your freedom to explore a sovereign soul supports your increased and diverse understanding of the nature of your own ways and soul preferences. We all have different soul preferences. Your liberation frees your sense of self and your sense of the divine from a stifling box. Some people feel more comfortable and safe from within a box. They may choose to fully explore that one box, and that's totally okay. Society loves creating boxes rooted in comfortableness. Some of you want to blow up the damn box and explore the vastness of the beyond and the vastness of the within, to see how they are all connected and what it all means. That's great too. I felt that one because some weeks I am all about, like, in my mind, exploring the cosmos, right? Everything way out there. And other times, like this week, I'm all about exploring the deep, deep within, like the nature and possibility of every electron in my body. So, I go to both extremes. And that's just how my soul works on this journey. Some people want and need rigid instruction manuals. Some people want and need freedom to create their own set of rules. One size fits all simply isn't true. Trying to force fit a handed down belief system doesn't honor the sovereign nature of the soul. If it fits for you, cool. That's fantastic. If it feels like a forced fit, then it can feel claustrophobic instead. They said spirit-splaining is when people attempt to explain their version of truth as if it is the truth. They give the impression that their way is the only way. There's a difference between sharing elements of a cultural approach or particular way with someone and insisting that the other person is wrong if they don't follow it. And I think that's interesting. You know, during my trip to Sedona, I had the chance to spend time with my friend Brandy and her daughter. And I was so honored that they were willing to share portions of their culture with me. And it's different than the way I operate spiritually in the world. And never once did I get a sense that in sharing and explaining different things to me or letting me see, you know, a little glimpse into some things, that they were approaching it from, and since you don't do it this way, you're wrong, or your spirit is less evolved, or anything like that. It was this beautiful, rich exchange that was rooted in, and here's just another way to think about it, rather than you're wrong if you don't approach it this way. You know, even in the spiritual world, when I was first learning about one particular meditation, for example, the Merkaba meditation, I read a book, and in the book it was talking about, if you don't do it exactly like this and follow these steps exactly like they're written, then you are doing it wrong and all kinds of hell is going to break loose and horrible things are going to happen. Well, the rebel in me kind of goes, no, you know, whoa. But later, like a couple of years later in meditation, I get the clear sense that that path, that way of doing that particular meditation isn't my way of doing it. And here's my way of doing it. And it was interesting because that was so freeing on one hand, but on the other hand, there was this little nugget of, ooh, but what if I'm doing it wrong and horrible things happen? I had to get rid of, flush, you know, that nugget of doing it wrong according to someone else's spirit-splaining, and give myself permission to follow the more liberated path that my soul set forth instead. And it worked for me. So that's just something to consider for yourself. There's a difference. Oh, they said there's an invitation to learn more and to consider. And then there's a belittling feeling if you don't know or adopt a certain approach. One of our opportunities is actually to remain curious to other people's way of doing things or thinking about things. And what this reminds me of is the first time I took my Jeep off-roading, you know, and one of my friends said, hey, I'll go with you and kind of explain the nuts and bolts of wheeling. And I'm like, awesome, you know, I'm fantastic. So it was the first time I'd actually put my Jeep in four-wheel low and locked in the hubs and, you know, out in the mud and the rocks and everything. And he knows a lot, and he's been doing this a long time. And there was one point when he's explaining in what could have been like a master's level thesis about the history and nature of carbureted engines. And there's a part of me that's just like, oh my God, would you just tell me how to make my Jeep work and how to not hurt it? And go on already. It felt a little bit like mansplaining, I'll be honest. But there was another part of myself that said, hey, just listen and just learn. Because he wasn't talking down to me. He wasn't making me feel like an idiot for not knowing these things. It was my lack of self-confidence or my thought of, ooh, I should already know this, that almost got in the way. But when I stepped aside and observed the situation, there was an opportunity for me to learn a lot, especially the dynamics of why fuel in a carbureted, you know, system work differently at an angle. Hell, I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have kept my mind open. Don't ask me to repeat it because I'm not going to remember. But it was just an interesting example to me of how I was quick to jump initially from my own insecurity into, ooh, this must be mansplaining, to where when I got curious and actually listened and let him share his knowledge, it was useful and helpful. And like, I remember parts of it, and that was actually pretty cool. So sometimes we need to not let our own insecurity get in the way of learning other things. One thing I've also found true, though, is that sometimes people hold on to this is the only way to do things when they're not as confident or secure in their own soul sovereignty. And when they're not as comfortable and secure in their own sovereignty, it's harder to afford other people the freedom to experience the journey through their own soul sovereignty. So it's interesting how it's all kind of related. You know, what they did say is that everyone has their own path. Some choose well-paved paths. Others of us choose dirt roads. What if, I love this, what if rather than spend so much time making others feel wrong for not being on our path or doing things our way, we focus on why our path works for us? And maybe even focus on elements that we can bring into our path and be open to even our path shifting and turning and changing and incorporating new and different ideas. They said we can be sovereign in our soul's pursuit, and we can have enough confidence to allow others to be sovereign in their soul's pursuit too. So, spirit-splaining. Probably, you know, if we stay open and let others have their path, then spirit-splaining really doesn't become an issue. So today, I just want you to know, the guides once again came back and said, remember always that you are loved. Your path is the perfect path for you. It will shift and change over time, just like it's supposed to, as you shift and change over time. You are a sovereign, infinite soul, worthy of infinite divine love. Remember always that that's the case, and then just go pay that remembrance forward. Have a great day. I love you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. See ya.